Hey, Dylan from Throttle Company in Columbus, Ohio here. And we're doing another episode of In the Loop, where I take a motorcycle around our test ride route and tell you what it is like to ride. Today's episode is the Royal Enfield Shotgun 650. There it is, stencil white is the color name. We also have another one called sheet metal gray, and there's two other colors, blue and green. This is the white one. It's the most noticeable one, just because it stands out, I think. We have black engine cases, blacked out exhaust, cast wheels, tubeless tires, LED headlight in the front. So that took a while to get to America. Other countries have had that. We have adjustable levers, metal cases for these controls. These are the new style controls that they do, kind of well, you'll see the controls when we're riding. Different mirrors. There's a new Interceptor. We'll get to that one. This seat has a bit of a trick, so it's in pillion mode here. You can take the pillion seat off, and it has like a luggage rack. You can take that luggage rack off and just make it solo with a nice naked fender in the back. But enough of the details here. It's the same engine as the Interceptor and the GT. There's a GT over there, Apex Gray, brand new one. So I own an Interceptor, so I'm pretty familiar with these bikes. I've probably ridden more 650s than just about anybody in America. But this is what it's like to ride the Shotgun. So we have mid controls. This is basically if you're familiar with the Super Meteor, this is the same front end, same frame, but different controls. Let's go ahead and get started. The handlebars are different than the Super Meteor. That's the first thing I notice, is they're lower and they're more narrow. So it's definitely sportier. I love these new controls. The blades, if you will, of the brake and clutch lever are nice and wide. Just feels very substantial and reassuring. Coming up on golden hour here, that's pretty nice. A photographer's dream. So what's nice to show you here, I think, is that we have the single gauge pod, the same kind of concept that they're doing on the Super Meteor. So we don't have a tach. We have a speedometer, and we have over here a stripper. Right now it's just a clock because I'm not using it. I have a gear indicator here, and then across the top is my fuel gauge. Sorry for the extra music. Hopefully it doesn't get me demonetized here. So we just have a simple gauge. Down underneath here we have USB, it looks like. Am I right? I don't know. We'll see if there's actually USB under there. There is on some bikes, and then I'm not 100% sure on this one. This is painted, so this handlebar brace right here matches the body color here, which is pretty cool. And then these black, gauge pods here, or whatever there would be, control pods, are perfect. On the Super Meteor, this is just like raw aluminum, which I think fits that bike, and I think black fits this bike really well. Gear indicator is really nice. It's one of those things that you would think like, oh, I don't actually need. But then it is really, really convenient. Like right now I know I'm in first. I could just pop it into neutral and know I'm in neutral. Let me try to get in front of this guy. So plenty of power. It feels sportier than the Super Meteor, but that doesn't really make any sense since they're the same engine. It feels like an Interceptor, more like an Interceptor than the Super Meteor as a cruiser. And we've got an interesting combination of wheel sizes. So it's 18 front, 17 rear, which is like the modern Bonneville, or we sell Moto Guzzis, the V7 is that way. So it's a 150, a really wide rear. And then the front being at 18 is like a kind of a vintage size, a retro size, which I think is nice and I'm used to, but it's definitely not the sportiest size. 17s front and rear are usually the sporty size. It's a beautiful day out. It's April. I think it's April 19th. Geez, I don't know. Well, we literally just got this bike in today, rolled it off the truck. I did the PDI, and this is the last step of PDI, which is a test ride. I know people argue with me all the time in the comments on YouTube about it, but this is a important part of the process, is have an expert like me ride this bike, make sure the clutch lever feels good. The clutch lever always needs adjusted. Sometimes actually on this one, I did the throttle free play. I'm a stickler for those kind of things. And so you want an expert riding it and setting it up, make sure everything's okay. Put the battery in, check the fluids. Take it on a test ride. Make sure the brakes work. Because I'm not saying it happens a lot, and it really happens pretty rarely, but every once in a while the brakes need bled, or clutch lever feels weird, or you run into something that just needs double checked. And I don't want to send a customer down the road. You don't want me to send you down the road always questioning, is this normal? So the way I give it to you now, because I've checked it, is normal. I'm expecting a lot of people come look at these bikes. We've got a lot of calls about the shotgun. I think a lot of people saw the Super Meteor, which I personally love. I put a ton of miles on our Super Meteor, and I think that a lot of people are waiting. There may be Super Meteor people, and they're thinking, what about the shotgun? Am I more of a shotgun person? So I think a lot, now that we've got this in, people want to sit on one or the other and compare the seating position. I can tell you right now, I get it. This is sportier, and it does feel like more of like a hooligan kind of like ripping around bike. But the forward controls of the Super Meteor, I personally really, really like. I just think that ergonomically they're perfect. I think they're ultra comfortable. Here's something, speaking of comfort, that Royal Enfield is really starting to get better at. And like I mentioned earlier, we also sell Moto Guzzi. Moto Guzzi, being Italian, are fantastic at upholstery. I think the older seats on Royal Enfields were very soft, and I think when you're in the showroom and you're sitting on it, you go, oh wow, this is so comfortable. And I think you're right in the showroom, but when you get out on the road and you're shifting your weight and you're sitting on it for an hour, you don't want soft. You want a bit of firmness, and I think that's what they're starting to get right. This seat that I'm sitting on right now is like a solo kind of tractor style vintagey looking seat. It's really firm in exactly the right way. It feels awesome. And then if you talk about wanting to be more of a hooligan, it is better to have a firmer seat. You want something to kind of push against, something to slide around and feel sure about rather than squish. All right, I'm going to shut up and we're going to give it the beans here. That was your moment of zen. All right, 6 gears, of course, just like all the other 650s in the Royal Enfield range. This is a brand new bike. I'm not about to lug it up there in 6 for very long, so we're back down to 4th. But you see that eco light comes on, so I'm riding economically. It's telling me that I'm kind of in that range that's going to get me the best fuel mileage, which is great. A lot of people that buy these bikes are ultra concerned with fuel mileage. Honestly, as far as motorcycles go, the Royal Enfields are all just top notch as far as fuel mileage. These bikes are overbuilt, and they're not performance bikes. They're built for reliability and fuel mileage. And my Interceptor gets 75 miles to the gallon regularly. Some of the smaller bikes, the 350, if you drive conservatively, 90 miles to the gallon is not at all unattainable. So this bike I would expect to get somewhere between 65 and 75 miles to the gallon. It's a little heavier than an Interceptor, but not by much, and it's basically the same thing with just a kind of a different ergonomics and style. So onto riding position, and what I really try to do in these videos is give you the feeling of what it's like. Let's say you live far from a Royal Enfield dealer, or you don't know where there is a dealer, or you're just kind of casually looking at this motorcycle or interested. It's definitely got an interesting, like, it doesn't quite fit in a category. It's sort of a standard cruiser. So it's not cruiser, it's standard riding position, but cruiser like DNA. That's the closest I can give you to what it feels like. I am leaned forward. I do feel like I could really push this. I have a lot of leverage over the handlebars, and because my weight is forward, by the way, I think this is interesting. A lot of people sit more backward. I think it just seems natural on an Interceptor or a GT. They slide their butt back. I think you want to be all the way up on the tank. I think the ergonomics just suddenly makes sense when you do that. So that's a little pro tip if you already have an Interceptor, which I do, and that's my main motorcycle. I sort of made it into a scrambler. I love scramblers. And the best way, sort of ergonomically, all day or whatever, you can shift around. But if you're going into turns and you're really trying to like have fun, get out there and see what the bike's made out of, slide a little forward. It gives you this kind of bend your elbows control that you feel a little bit more over the front tire, if any of that makes any sense. My feet are extremely natural where they are. The bend in my knees is just super comfortable. It's not quite as comfortable as putting my feet forward, kind of like a lazy boy in the Super Meteor position. But if that's not for you, which I totally understand, it wasn't for me in the beginning. The first couple bikes I rode with forward controls, I was like, I don't really get it. I don't know why people do it. Now it's my thing. I like it. But if it's not for you, I totally get it. That's super common. Or if you have shorter legs or whatever, I totally get it. So this is probably a very solid option for you. The tank is sporty. The interesting thing is it feels like a big flat side. So when I squeeze my knees a little bit to kind of, give myself some more leverage in the turns, or more stability here for my, to not use my abs so much, if you will. Man, that truck was driving slow. Sorry about that. When I do that, I feel the big slab side of the tank, which is great on the Super Meteor. Maybe I've got one. Yeah, let's pull up to it. See, the Super Meteor side of the tank is very curved. It's got a kind of a rounded side to it. I definitely notice the difference here when I put my leg in there. This feels a lot more comfortable. That feels like I'm putting it against a curve, and this is a nice flat wall to be against. You can see, obviously, the handlebars are much bigger, kind of beach bars as they would have used to call them, or Western bars, but they're much higher up and much wider than this. This is extremely narrow compared to those. And the seat actually feels very similar. So that's sort of your tractor style seat, very similar to the seat I'm on now. It was awesome. It was very fun to ride. Honestly, if you're out there looking and this is on your list, I don't envy you, because it's a hard choice. We got a bunch of them lined up over there. So other shotgun, which is the sheet metal gray, Interceptor GT as a customer's GT, but and then an old GT. So we got a lot of bikes lined up there that you would be sort of in your world. And when I chose the Interceptor, I chose it because I knew I was going to be riding all day. I like the kind of upright, vintage, classic look, and the scrambler style was something I wanted to do to it. And I didn't want to be as far forward as clip-on. So that was an obvious choice, an easy one for me. Now, I have no idea. I really have no idea. I probably would go for Super Meteor personally, but man, this bike really throws a wrench into the mix of how easy it would be to just say, oh, cruiser, Super Meteor. Oh, standard, you're an Interceptor. Oh, you want to be a little bit sporty or a cafe racer? That's a GT. Where does this fit in? You know what I mean? It's a sportier Super Meteor, so it's kind of in between Interceptor and Super Meteor, and that's where we have the shotgun. Hopefully you enjoyed this ride. I'm happy to answer questions. Come on down, test ride. Look at all these bikes here, with the exception of anything past that Himalayan. All of these are our test ride bikes, so we're big on test rides. I don't know how you would buy a bike without test riding it. You'd have to watch 100 videos like this. So speaking of, thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next In the Loop.